Okay. Hello, everyone. I hope this is working. I am live streaming right now. I will be doing this for about 30 minutes. The topic of this live stream is the Introduction to Philosophy textbook by Openstax. And I hope to run through chapter one just a little bit. Not everything, because there's quite a lot, and there's a few articles to read as well, which will take too much time. So I'm just going to run through a few things. Basically, I'll just be giving an overview. I'll be reading a few of the pages, maybe talk about it, maybe have some notes to take as well, and that will be it. So if you're interested in looking at this textbook together, this is the opportunity to do that. And just a brief introduction, overview of who I am. So this is my channel, Revolutionize Education. I started this channel a few years ago, and I started it because I had been tutoring students, mainly in Canada, and students online as well in other countries for many years, and I found it very interesting. And I still do it as much as I can, uh, as well as working a full-time job, so it's difficult, but I still do this, and I learned a lot from tutoring. I got really interested in how students learn and what they're learning these days, and the process of all those things. And I also was really excited because I got to relearn a lot of concepts that I had learned when I was younger, and relearning them as an adult was interesting because I understood them better, and I started learning about how I learn and process information. And by reflecting on that, it was really helpful for figuring out how to do the same to help students learn these concepts as well in a more tailored way. So a lot of these classes are one-on-one, some are group classes. So basically, I love educating, I love learning, and I'm always curious, and that's why I love tutoring, and I want to make more content for this channel to just have more of a presence online for revolutionized education. My dream is to continue this. It's a nonprofit organization to continue this. My dream at the beginning was to provide free, tailored courses and classes, one-on-one classes, group classes for math, science, English, reading and writing, history, geography, lots of those things. Anything that students are doing in school, mostly students from ages, 8 to 15, 16, around there. I'd like to be able to do more high school stuff, but I need to study more and make sure I really understand what I'm talking about for that stuff. Uh, in addition to making sure I know what I'm talking about for everything that I tutor. But my goal was to provide these high quality classes, really good education that I wish I had when I was a young person. And it would all be for free. So it would be provided to families that wouldn't have to worry about paying. There would be no burden because I worked for a bunch of private companies, and they charge insane amounts per hour for not really something, well, it depends on how well the tutor is instructing the student, but in many cases, I don't think the company deserves to be paid that much, or the parent, the families should have to pay that much, sometimes 60 Canadian dollars per hour for these classes. So that was my goal, to provide everything for free and rely on donations and grants from the government. And in short, it all fell apart, and it did not work at all, because that doesn't happen. That's not a real way to view things so idealistically. I applied for many grants, heard nothing back. I tried to reach out to other organizations doing this. I have no credibility or reputation at all as well, so that doesn't help. So then I had to start charging again for classes and get a job and all those things and figure out how to make money and survive while still doing this. So I don't care. I will still work and spend time working and making money as much as I can to survive and limiting my costs so that I can sustain this thing. Because my absolute goal is to sustain this thing so that re-ed can grow into something that provides educational content that is high quality, that gives students the things they need for the real world, for the future. I've talked to too many people who say, oh, when I was a kid, I learned nothing or school wasn't helpful at all. I've heard too much of that. And I've heard too much from parents who talk about now how their child has trouble focusing, can't do all this stuff, has too much homework, can't get the homework done, doesn't know what to do. I'm sure there are other cases where, students are doing fine, but why not give them everything they need to succeed? Why not do that? I think education is a powerful tool, and I don't think we should give up on the people that are going to be the future and make changes in the world. And I think we should really see how much education can help. So we should all be learning, in short, and helping other people learn as well. In the future, I hope that Re-Ed can grow into something where we actually do have funding, we actually are sustainable. It is a nonprofit that is sustainable. Different locations around the world where tutors are brought in, highly trained, highly specialized, but also generalized. They need to know a bit of everything, multidisciplinary. They always have to be curious. They have to really know what they're doing and be high quality. And just the one thing is really love to teach, love to learn, have a passion for it. Have tutors around the world that can provide these services to students either in person or online. That's it. That's all I would love to have. So anyways, that's why I create this content. That's why I do all this stuff. It's subpar. It's not good. But I don't really have the time to make it super amazing, and it's just me for the moment. So that's all I can say about that. I'm going to go through Introduction to Philosophy, Chapter 1 today. And I'm looking at the stats now. No one is watching. That's fine. No one has to be watching as long as I'm doing this. It's kind of for me to make sure I'm on top of things. For Revolutionize Education, I would like to be able to do a live stream every month on something interesting. The last one I did was on reading Nietzsche, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, which was a lot of fun. And I was hiking the famous Nietzsche Trail in France as well, which was great. However, in the intro, I remember reading that that book shouldn't be read first. You should read all of other Nietzsche's books instead, and really understand his work before you try to read the final one. So maybe I'll do that again and read some of his earlier work. Okay, so here's philosophy. Why philosophy? In short, for me, philosophy was the gateway, the door, the window, the light, whatever you want to call it, that showed me a pathway to opening my mind and having a kind of a new way of thinking and learning in university. I remember in university, I took music. First year, second year, I didn't really feel like it just felt like an extension of high school, but with more agency. Um, I was able to, live on my own and things like that, and didn't worry as much about, well, no, I guess I worried more about completing my essays and the exams and everything because it's university and there's also a lot of money involved to be paid to go to university. But it wasn't until about third year university that I took an elective, and it was in architectural criticism, and then I took another elective in kind of syllogism, kind of like logic, that type of stuff. And those courses were very eye-opening because I had to read a lot, and I was reading mostly philosophy. I remember the first thing I got into was Enlightenment philosophers, which, you can think what you want about Enlightenment philosophers, but it was the first time I had read anything like that, where these people were writing about ideas and thinking. And I just found that very interesting. And it changed my whole kind of view on things. And I started thinking a lot about thinking. It really opened a door. There was that moment, and I think everyone should have that moment when they're in university or some type of higher level educational institution, maybe even in high school. But that moment where something opens and you see the value of ideas. And Stephen Fry put it really amazingly in one of the debates that he was in many years ago. When he was quoting Oscar Wilde, he talked about how Oscar Wilde mentioned the Oxford temper, or something like that, which basically he meant the university manner, which is the ability to play gracefully with ideas. And I totally get that, because that when I started reading a lot and thinking a lot and discussing with other people, it was all about playing with ideas. And I think that's something that I will always want to do and carry on doing for the rest of my life. So here we go, Introduction to Philosophy. This is all free. The reason I'm going through this is because it's all free. Um, you can get these textbooks on Openstax on the website. You can get math textbooks, science, writing, social sciences, anything, a lot of things that you want, you can get. I really do think it's amazing that OpenStax offers this. So, and with everything that you read and learn, I always try to tell my students, take it with a grain of salt. Read these things, but have your own opinions, make your own conclusions, think about things. Maybe you even read a sentence or a paragraph that you think, I don't actually think that's right, or I agree with that. I put a lot of faith usually into textbooks that are published by people who are a lot smarter than I am, especially when it's science or math. But when it comes to ideas, philosophy, other things, social sciences, um, I am very critical. I try to be very critical. And that's fine. And you can be critical, and you can get validation by talking to other people who may have been thinking about these things as well, and maybe people that you look up to or admire. You can get validation, or you can think, okay, maybe I was wrong in thinking this thing's not correct. Okay, so let's go through here. This is all the stuff at the beginning. Okay, here we go. I think I'm just going to do a few pages and then end this live stream. Introduction to Philosophy. Chapter 1. It begins with dialogue with friends, with yourself, with other philosophers, and with the past. That has taken conversations, time, moves slowly when talking with old friends. That's the name of the picture, I guess. Okay, introduction. For most college students, an introduction to philosophy course is their first encounter with the study of philosophy. Like most of your other courses, philosophy is not something usually covered in high school. Yet you are probably familiar with the term philosophy and may have some preconceived notion about what philosophy is and what philosophers do. Perhaps you have stayed up late at night talking with friends or family about topics like free will or the existence of God. That's definitely something that I encourage all students to do. That's something that I did as well. I think most human has that innate curiosity to see what other people think about these ideas, to think about them, to stay up late talking about these ideas. Maybe you have a friend who always talks about big ideas or asks tough questions that sound like riddles. Perhaps you think of them as philosophical. You might be right. In this chapter, we will provide a brief introduction to the field of philosophy as a historical and academic discipline. The first chapter should prepare you for your philosophy course and give you a better idea of what it means to be a philosopher. As with all introductions, this one is just a start. Your job is to explore more, think more, read more, and write more like a person. Soon you may even find that you are doing philosophy. So a lot of weight here put on the idea of philosophy. But I think um, in general, we're just thinking about ideas and trying to make conclusions from ideas here. And I think it's good to have some history, background, So let's get into that. What is philosophy? Learning objectives. By the end of this section, you will be able to identify sages, early philosophers across historical traditions, explain the connection between ancient philosophy and the origin of the sciences, describe philosophy as a discipline that makes coherent sense of a whole, and summarize the broad and diverse origins of philosophy. It is difficult to define philosophy. Actually, I remember, and I don't know who said this, but I think I heard this when I was in university. I used to listen to a podcast from a Canadian podcast, CBC Radio. It was called Ideas with Paul Kennedy. I don't think, well, I'm not sure if he's still alive, but Paul Kennedy is not doing that podcast anymore. Um, but when he was, I listened to it a lot, and there were some very deep episodes where they talked about philosophy. And I remember one they talked about Carl Jung's The Red Book. That was very interesting. That kind of got me started on thinking about ideas more. Anyways, in university, I heard someone say, and I don't know if it's from that podcast, but it was something, I can't remember who said it. They said philosophy is the science of death. And I think that's kind of true because when you think about philosophical things, concepts, I find this happens when I think about ideas. A lot of when I think about ideas, I think about, okay, first of all, what's the meaning behind this? Can I extrapolate meaning? Because that's pretty much what humans are built to do. Can I extrapolate meaning from this thing? And then I go deeper, and why am I extrapolating meaning? What's all this for? What, by getting to the meaning of existence, all these things. And then it always comes back down to, well, I'm going to die. Um, so I don't know if this person meant that when they said it's the science of death. But every time I think about philosophy or these ideas, I think, okay, well, all this is interesting, and eventually we're all going to die. And people who are dead have thought about these things and have passed them on. So we should take those and we should think about those as well and pass them on to the other generations because we are going to die as well. And I don't know, it just always comes down to me thinking, okay, I'm thinking about this thing, yeah, and I'm going to die eventually. So I'm just going to try to keep thinking about this thing and try to make some conclusion before I die. I like to have opinions about things. And if I can't make an opinion, then I kind of put it to the side, have it in the back of my mind, keep thinking about it, eventually try to make an opinion. And a way to make an opinion is to listen to other people, which can be good or bad sometimes. But pretty much we're all influenced by others. Anyways, so it's difficult to define philosophy. In fact, to do so is itself a philosophical activity, since philosophers are attempting to gain the broadest and most fundamental conception of the world as it exists. The world includes nature, consciousness, morality, beauty, and social organization. So the content available for philosophy is both broad and deep. Because of its very nature, philosophy considers a range of subjects. Philosophers cannot automatically rule anything out. Whereas other disciplines allow for basic assumptions, philosophers cannot be bound by such assumptions. This open-endedness makes philosophy a somewhat awkward and confusing subject for students. There are no easy answers to the questions of what philosophy studies or how one does philosophy. Nevertheless, in this chapter, we can make some progress on these questions by 1, looking at past examples of philosophers. Sure. 2, considering one compelling definition of philosophy, and 3, looking at the way academic philosophers today actually practice philosophy. Okay, now academic philosophers, how they practice philosophy, I don't really know anything about that or how that really is useful unless I have a friend who I know, who I'm close to, who is some type of academic philosopher who can give me guidance in my life or something. But today, in this day and age, I think most people would not really want to consider becoming an academic philosopher. What would you even be doing with most of your time? If someone is and they're watching this, please let me know. Historical origins of philosophy. One way to begin to understand philosophy is to look at its history. The historical origins of philosophical thinking and exploration vary around the globe. The word philosophy derives from ancient Greek, in which the philosopher is a lover or pursuer, philia, of wisdom, sophia. So this is very cool because I had a student recently, he was using resources from CK12, which is an organization that provides all free content, really great, really incredible content. It's not CK12, sorry, Core Knowledge. It's called Core Knowledge. CK12 is a different thing. It's called Core Knowledge, and he has to go through the etymology of words, so where these words come from and the origins of these words. And we did talk about the word wisdom and how it came, uh, how the Greek word for wisdom is Sophia. Okay. Um, but the earliest Greek philosophers were not known as philosophers, they were simply known as sages. The sage tradition provides an early glimpse of philosophical thought in action. Sages are sometimes associated with mathematical and scientific discoveries, and at other times with their political impact. What unites these figures is that they demonstrate a willingness to be skeptical of traditions, a curiosity about the natural world and our place in it, and a commitment to applying reason to understand nature, human nature, and society better. The overview of the sage tradition that follows will give you a taste of philosophy's broad ambitions as well as its focus on complex relations between different areas of human knowledge. There are some examples of women who made contributions to philosophy and the sage tradition in Greece, India, and China, but these were patriarchal societies that did not provide many opportunities for women to participate in philosophical and political discussions. Okay. I'm going to copy these. I'm just going to copy this whole thing. I like to copy things from textbooks and put them in my notes just to review in the future and use that if I need to write a response about something, if I need to infer something, make conclusions. Every time I read something like this, an article or something from a textbook, I try to summarize it and then make my own conclusion from it, extract meaning from it. I think actually the last live stream I did was on a National Geographic article about the Crusades, but the focus of the article was a bit different. It was about the Crusades started by young people. There was a name for it, and they were called the some something with a P. They called those people something with a P. They were young people, but they don't know the writer, the historians don't know if this was all true, if it was actually young people or if it was just like peasants and poor people. But they were doing these unsanctioned crusades that the Pope did not sanction. And this Pope at that time of the Crusades, 13th century, I want to say 14th century, 13th century, maybe, uh, did not sanction these. The Pope was the most powerful person in the world at the time, did not sanction these crusades. So these were the sanctioned crusades, and a lot of them failed and led to ruin and just chaos and everything. And I thought it was a very interesting article, and I was trying to extract some meaning from it. And there are a few things that I got. The first thing is that there was a reason why they didn't want to have these certain types of people who were basically young or poor, desperate, not they didn't want them to do these crusades. And there was a reason. It was because it could lead to chaos and disorder. And there were examples of that where um, these crusades, something around Paris, I think, ended up really bad, and they started just like, going after regular people, like in the city, and not going after doing the whole crusade thing. It ended up becoming like a vicious mob, and so that was very interesting. And anyways, I can't remember too much more, but I was trying to extract some meaning from that article. And that's what I think we should always do when we read these things. Okay. Oh, is it live? Yes, it is live. Thank you. There is someone watching. I'm going to read this and then I think I'm going to finish up. The sages of India, China. So we just have some historical background here. Africa and Greece in classical Indian philosophy and religion. And if anybody has any problems with this, thinks anything is wrong or that I'm messing anything up, please let me know. In classical Indian philosophy and religion, sages play a central role in both religious mythology and in the practice of passing down teaching and instruction through generations. The seven sages, or Saptarishi, seven rishis, in the Sanskrit language, play an important role in Sanatana Dharma. The eternal duties have come to be identified with Hinduism, but that predate the establishment of the religion. Seven sages are partially considered wise men and are said to be the authors of the ancient Indian texts known as the Vedas, but they are partly mythic figures as well, who are said to have descended from the gods and whose reincarnation marks the passing of each age of Manu, age of man, or epoch of humanity. The rishis tended to live monastic lives, and together they are thought of as spiritual and practical forerunners of Indian gurus or teachers, even up to today. They derive their wisdom in part from spiritual forces, but also from tapas, like the food, or the meditative, ascetic, and spiritual practices they perform to gain control over their bodies and minds. The stories of the rishis are part of the teachings that constitute spiritual and philosophical practice in contemporary Hinduism. Figure 1.2 depicts a scene from the Matsya Purana, where Manu, the first man whose succession marks the prehistorical ages of Earth, sits with the seven sages in a boat to protect them from a mythic flood that is said to have submerged the world. The king of serpents guides the boat, which is said to have also contained seeds, plants, and animals saved by Manu from the flood. So there we have a flood myth. I really like that picture. Interesting. Okay. Aid of the king of serpents. Figure 1.2 with the aid. So guiding seven sages through floodwaters with the aid of the king of serpents. Where is the king of serpents? I would imagine it would be this serpentine creature here. Okay, I'm going to stop there, and I will continue for the next philosophy live stream. I'll continue reading this. Some articles in here, chapter 1, that the chapter on early history. No, sorry. There's one here that I clicked the hyperlink to, and it's super long. Philosophy and the Scientific Image of Man. It's a huge essay, so we have to read through it and look at those questions. That's going to take a long time. So I guess we've just now created a intro to philosophy course. That's fun. Hopefully more people join. Let's say this was day 1 of the intro to philosophy course. Day 1, just getting to know everybody. Nice to meet everybody. We will go through this. We will start after figure 1.2 next time. I'll go onto YouTube now and check. Okay. And there we go. Thank you. MD Imran. Amazing. I would love to talk to you more. Send me a message. That's so cool that you're from India and we were just talking about this, just reading through this. Yeah, maybe you can help me make my live streams better. I'm going to finish this up. Thank you. And it's in France here. It's nighttime. It's around 9 p.m., 9:20 p.m. So I'm going to do a bit more studying and then head to bed. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day or night. Bye-bye.